Hey guys, this is Shakti from Around the Wicket, where we not only speak about the game, but we try to learn more about the humans behind our sport. I'm very excited to have a World Cup winner, a member of the 1996 Cricket World Cup winning squad for Sri Lanka, where he played a crucial knock of 65 in the final. Now he resides in Australia and has been for some time now, and recently got appointed as part of the culture and diversity team with Cricket Australia. Asanka Gurusinha, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
First, tell us how you are and how are things in Melbourne.
Oh, look, I'm good. Melbourne, as you know, most probably last 3-4 months or even more we have been in more lockdowns than anything else. We have been staying at home a lot, but I've been doing my hopefully fitness work and stuff to make sure that I don't put on weight. I'm doing pretty good, other than just a little bit bored now because I came back from Sri Lanka after finishing my contract with Sri Lanka Cricket last year. Actually, it's 1 year ago. And I was telling a friend of mine yesterday that out of that 1 year, nearly 6.5 months has been in lockdown.
Wow. So have you heard anything about when the restrictions will be easing up?
Okay, so I think just now the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews made some announcements to say that tomorrow morning he'll be announcing whatever it's changing.
Okay.
Our numbers are pretty good. We were they were targeting daily average between 30 and 50 by tomorrow to reduce some restrictions, but we are now at 23.
Yep.
So we are heading the right way, but I can understand his side as well because you don't want the numbers to keep going up and closing it, but at the same time it's the economy that's been affected, so it's a difficult decision for him.
He's caught in between, I guess, in terms of economy and health, and I think he's doing a great job, but we are not in that position to make any judgment, I guess. When it comes to cricket, Asanka, could you share some insights about growing up in Sri Lanka, picking up the sport of cricket?
Yes, absolutely. From a little kid, I can remember I was interested in cricket. I would play in the garage. I had a nice we lived in a nice neighborhood with kids, and so we were playing on the streets. As you know, those days there was not many vehicles on the road, and not many at all. So you can easily play on the street. We used to do a lot of that as a little kid, and my father used to take me to watch the club tournament in Sri Lanka, where that was the top tournament those days. And every weekend, it was only weekend games, so I will go with my father and watch games. And I was loving it. And I lived right across from one of the major schools in Sri Lanka, and I used to watch them play cricket, their school games. So I was pretty hooked, most probably from a very young age. My father was the main person who really supported me, but my uncles also really backed me, and that's where I started the love for the game.
When you got called up for the national team, obviously Sri Lanka was very young in terms of its inception into international cricket status. Do you remember that moment, and do you feel that the team was trying to still find its feet at that time when you joined the group?
Absolutely, in the test arena especially, and even if you take the ODI arena, I think we played our first test in 81, and it was 1985 that I was called up on my first tour. So within 4 years, and there have been a lot of changes in that 4 years. With actually Sri Lankan rebel team touring South Africa, so we lost a lot of players as well, and a lot of new players were there. And as a 19-year-old, I made my test debut. I can still remember getting the call from the chairman of selectors to say that I'm been selected to go to Pakistan. But I was most probably prepared better because before the Pakistan tour, we were playing India in Sri Lanka, and I was pretty much at that time was brought into the team as the 12th man because I was young. I was really good fielder, and so I was in the test team as a squad right through. So I was adjusting pretty well, and but I was scoring runs as well in all the practice games of those days. They call it like a board 11 games against visiting teams, and I got hundreds. Actually, I got 100 against India as well. in one of the board 11 games. Uh, so I was mentally, and I think I was ready when the call came.
In 1996 World Cup, obviously, momentous occasion for the nation, turning point for Sri Lanka. Obviously, you played a knock that's somewhat forgotten, but a very very crucial knock of 65 in the final. You had 350s in the tournament, obviously in 6 matches as well. Tell us about that tournament for yourself, and the legacy that it has left behind for Sri Lankan cricket.
I think I'll start with myself because it's going to be a short one about that. I was very happy because I've been in that team for nearly 11 years, playing for Sri Lanka and doing well. I was disappointed that I couldn't get 100 in that tournament because I got two 80s, and I think both 80s one I got run out, the other one I was going for a six and was caught on the long on line. So I, I was disappointed I couldn't get 100, but overall I was very happy where Sri Lanka ended and our batting side. But I think the preparation started long before that. I think one of the biggest strengths we had during that World Cup was we had 5 senior players with Arjuna captain Aravinda, myself, Roshan Mahanam, and Hashan Tilagaratne, who have played from 85 onwards. I made my debut in 85, Roshan 86, I think Hashan around 87, Aravinda 84, and Arjuna from the first test. So just imagine that we had all of us had about 10 years of experience at international level, and that I think helped us because we knew playing and losing a lot at the start, getting thrashed by teams, and then it's getting to understanding to win, because that's the important thing that these days coaches are trying to do, is to get people to get into a habit of winning.
Winning, yeah.
But it's that as a seniors we understood how to handle pressure and all of that. So that really helped us, and we got to thank Javed and Duleep Mendis as well, and actually our physio Alex Contoris, who worked with us for nearly 1.5 years to get us to a fit team, as well as a team that played together as a family. And so that was some very special. And it's so funny you asked the question, because next year March it's 25 years, and the great thing is this team is still in touch. We meet whenever we can, and it's still like a family, and after 25 years. So that speak a lot about that side.
In terms of the legacy with Sri Lankan cricket, what do you feel it did to the nation itself?
I think when I say we, that 96 World Cup victory put Sri Lanka in the world map. I mean, there were a lot of countries that didn't know where Sri Lanka was because they didn't have a clue. But after that World Cup, people were asking questions: who is this? Where are these guys? And things like that. So it was, I think, an important thing for the country and for country sports, and especially for the cricket side. We were pretty much amateurs. We were not professional cricketers at that time. We were not paid by Sri Lanka Cricket on a monthly basis. We got tour allowances and tour fees. That's all we got. But we played with passion, and after that tour, things changed for Sri Lanka Cricket, and I'm very happy that happened because now, when you look back 25 years, I mean, these days our Sri Lankan cricketers are very professional. They pretty much 24/7 is cricket, and they are paid well. But I'm happy that paid well. But all those things happened because of that 96 World Cup victory. Sponsors started coming in, and the crowds started supporting the.
I mean, I was a 12-year-old, and I still remember the World Cup, both the semi-final, obviously, with what happened there, and the final. But the thing that stood out for me, even at that young age, was the brand of cricket that Sri Lanka was playing. It was something new in the international cricket arena. I guess for yourself, you hold a few records in Sri Lankan cricket. You were the youngest Test centurion against a very formidable Pakistan team. Obviously, had the likes of Wasim Akram, Imran Khan, who was the captain, Javed, Miandad, Abdul, Qadir. You also hold the slowest or third slowest century in the history of the game, a century that lasted 535 minutes. Something that is obviously a little bit different to your normal game because you are quite an attacking player. So do you remember these moments? There was one more as well because yes, you are the only Sri Lankan to score a century, and still are the only centurion at the MCG. So these are moments that probably bring you some wonderful memories.
Absolutely, they're good memories. The first thing you said, yeah, as the youngest Test 100, youngest person to get a Test 100, it still stands, and that is a disappointment because I scored it in 1986, and what's that? It's
about
30 years,
yeah.
34 years,
34
and
years,
it's still standing. Means that is disappointing. I'll be honest. It is sad that I haven't seen anybody from school level coming up and doing it. I didn't expect to be a record for that long. But I'm happy I was able to do it. But won't forget that because those days there was no bouncer rules or anything. You can bowl all 6 balls short. You can sledge anything. There was no match referees, nothing. So with you can imagine with Imran, Javed, Miandad, Salim Malik, those guys, and Wasim was young. But it was something we actually had to save the test match. Because we won the second test, Pakistan won the first test, and this was the third test. And Arjun and I batted a whole day. I can still remember bruises around every area because Akram and Imran was hitting me on my body. And when I came back home, because those days the team doesn't stay in a hotel. When you finish the game, you go home. And I couldn't lift my arm to take the t-shirts off. It's so painful, but that's a great memory. The slowest 100, look, I didn't want that to be a record, but it happened. I think a lot of people might be wondering why. We played Zimbabwe, and that's another thing. We were playing Zimbabwe, and that's another question. People might think, what the hell is that? But what Zimbabwe did was they were bowling a foot and a half or even outside off stump. And they had 7 fielders on the off and just 2 on the leg. And sometime halfway through, they made 8 fielders and just 1 on the leg side, and they were bowling. We lost 3 wickets, 3 wickets or so in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Roshan Mahanama, Aravinda, all those guys got out because they were just slashing the balls and out in the slips. So myself and Sanjeev Ranatunga, who batted at 3 or 4, I think, buckled down, and we just batted. Arjuna just told us, don't worry about it. If they're bowling outside the stumps, keep them out in the sun. And I didn't realize, to be honest, when I got the 100, there was nothing like that. And it's the next day I realized, oh my God, I have batted for so long. My whole innings was about 600 and something minutes. And I actually had to take some, they call it those days, which is not permitted now, those B12 injections, because my whole body was drained. It was hot. And they had to give me B12 injections to get me on the field. But that's what's happened. And yeah, the 100 at MCG, that's most probably one of the best 100s I've scored with McDermott, Glenn McGrath, Paul Rifle, and Shane Warne. I think that's one of the top bowling attacks, like similar to my Test debut 100 against Pakistan. So that's something very much in my memory. And Sri Lanka played again another test some time ago, but when Sangha and them are playing, but nobody has scored 100 there. So I'm hoping the next time Sri Lanka plays that, somebody will get it.
Yeah. A person that you mentioned, obviously, and you hold this in high regard as well, that Shane Warne, has over 1,000 international wickets, and he hasn't got you out, and you have scored a couple of centuries against him. How was it, contesting against someone like Shane Warne?
I think most probably Warnie was, I think, started in 92. So that's where I started playing against him. And I had a lot of experience. And I was, one of the main things I did was that just me, I'm not saying others should do anything like that, but I decided that I'm going on the front foot to Warnie because his main weapon was the flipper those days. And that was the player. A lot of players are playing from the crease or going on the back foot and getting out LBW or balls. I realized if I can tackle that, then Warnie has to try other things. So as soon as I started doing that, I realized Warnie was trying different things. He was trying to bowl outside off stump. He was trying his wrong on which wasn't good.
Mm.
I'm not. I mean, one, sorry, 700 odd test record. This is one of the best leg spinners, but his wrong on wasn't that good. Uh, so I realized that that weapon is taken out so that I can tackle him easily over
Mm.
that. So my strength was I'm on the front foot and I'll hit him on the front foot. If he's short, I'll go straight. I
Yeah.
did that at the MCG as well in the test match. I did that in Colombo in the test 100 I got. And I did that in the World Cup final, hitting him over long off and long on and pretty much on the front foot.
Excellent. Now, not long after you retired, at the age of 29, obviously it was an interesting time because it's 29 is still pretty young to retire from international cricket. Some were saying that, or there were suggestions that there was a little bit of I guess issues with the captain at that time in Ranatunga and the Sri Lankan Cricket Board. If you're comfortable, would you be able to share with us some of the happenings of what happened and why you decided to retire at an early age?
Yeah, look, I'm not worried about talking about it. It was 96 November or something that I came to Australia to play a club season
Hmm.
with a club called North Melbourne, and I haven't retired by then. I was still available to play, and I was playing good cricket. But yeah, I'll be honest, and I've been very open about it. At that particular time, Arjun and I were not seeing eye to eye. Plus the SLC and most probably one of the selectors, and I realized at that time, and most probably uh, I was a bit hot-headed as well. Uh, I got to agree on that, but yes, I didn't see it. But end of the day, it was my decision. Nobody forced me to retire or do anything. But the main reason, most probably, I announced my retirement from Australia was there was a tour to New Zealand. I was playing club cricket here, which is district cricket, and they selected me, and I said, okay, I'll fly from Melbourne to New Zealand. It was a tour to
Yeah.
New Zealand, which is a 3.5 hour flight.
Hmm.
But they insisted I fly back to Sri Lanka for 24 hours and then fly with the team back again to New Zealand. So they just wanted to make it difficult, all those things. And at that time, I just said, look, just get lost. I'm not going to fly back 24 hours. And they made a decision to fine me 50% of my tour earnings from that previous tour to Sharjah, saying that I have given a press statement and there was no proof or anything.
Hmm.
And I wanted them to have an inquiry. I actually spoke to the board president and I said, have an inquiry with someone outside, get a retired judge or whoever it is. I'll come down on my own money. I'll face the inquiry. And if they say I'm guilty of these charges, I'll accept whatever the thing you give.
Hmm.
But you can't just decide on anything without inquiry. They didn't have an inquiry. The board decided to fine me. And the best part was they have the guts to call me and say, we have found someone to pay your fine as well.
Wow.
And I won't mention that gentleman's name. He's a very nice person. He's a very nice guy. I know him well. And he has come forward. I didn't know. He has come forward and paid my fine. But to me, it was the
Hmm.
principle.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
done anything wrong.
Yeah.
If I come down and say, hey, I accept it, I said, guys, that means I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was no inquiry, nothing. Board decided and fined me. And the best part is they found someone to pay the fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that shows what a joke.
Yeah. What a mess. You went back to Sri Lankan cricket obviously in 2016.
Coach,
You didn't have the best of times with the team on the field. A string of poor performances, I guess. What do you feel contributed, to that?
Okay, couple of things. It was 2017. I went there, but actually it wasn't coach. I went initially as cricket manager.
Mhm.
And I had most probably it was a hybrid position from a director of cricket or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
I was cricket manager and a selector. So and on every tour I will go with the team as the team manager as well. But on tour I was the chairman of selectors,
Okay.
and I had most probably a little bit of say than a normal team manager. But at the end of the day, head coach was responsible for the performance of the team. And I was a selector, and at that time, Sanat Jayasuriya was the chairman of selectors. So that's how I went, and I did that for most probably a year and a half. and I moved into actually the Chief Cricket Operations Officer, which is head of cricket for Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka cricket. I did that for most probably 12 to 14 months, and but I decided 3 months before my contract expired that I'm not going to stay there. I'm coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why Sri Lanka cricket just kept saying, look, they're not going to. I mean, they haven't said anything up to today to me. But to me, is any contract negotiations is two-way. It's not one-way. If if I was interested, I would have put something in writing to them and said, yeah, I would like to extend my contract. Or they would have given a letter saying, we don't want to extend your contract. Or whatever. Nothing was happened. When the contract expired, I just came back.
Yeah.
So just going with performance, I think we were, it was a little bit of a mess. We had so many coaches changing, and even Graham Ford left as soon as I went, and they put the blame on me, saying Fordy left because of me. Fordy didn't leave because of me. I know exactly why Fordy left. And Fordy and I still talk. He has been openly talking to me about why he left and all those things. So, and then we had Nick Porters. To me, was doing a good job because he was appointed interim coach, and his tours were Zimbabwe, which had a lot of issues, India, Pakistan, and India again. I mean, India home and India in India. Just imagine for a coach who hasn't done any proper coaching or anything at the highest level, an interim coach. We did well. We won a one-day in India. We drew 2 test matches in India, and we did much better than anyone else. And then we brought in Haturu with absolutely a lot of experience and respect and all of that from the team. But Haturu wasn't given the end of his before the World Cup, was 6-7 months before the World Cup. I think that's where the problem started with the board and Haturu, which I can't go into detail. So all those things affected by the players and everyone. We got to look at our school structure a lot, and that's what I said when there's nobody has come into the national team straight from school. Where from Arjuna, Aravinda, myself, Roshan, Hashan, we all came straight from school. And even after that, Vasi and them, like within a year of leaving school, Vasi was playing for Sri Lanka, Murali, Kumar Dharmasena, Kalvitarana, Mavanatapattu, all those guys. So
wonderful names.
And Mahela after that. So that's what I feel. The school cricket standard has dropped, and we don't have players ready to play who are matured. When I say ready to play, is handling tough situations. That you can throw them into the deep end and they'll swim. So that's an issue. Our club cricket is an issue. We have 24 clubs playing Division 1 first class cricket. That we don't have 24 clubs to play cricket. We don't have players at that level. So that's a problem. So all those little things are affecting. And then when we keep changing coaches and changing administrations and all those things, that doesn't help either, because nobody can come in and put a plan together and go ahead. I mean, Australia, they can put all the plans. If a new board comes in, or a new chairman or a CEO, they don't change what the other people have done. They will look at improving what they have done. Where in Sri Lanka, what I've seen is if a new administration comes, the first thing they do is change everything the previous administration. So end of the day, nobody realizes the effect on these young players. They are our they are not bread and butter. They are our asset. The main asset Sri Lanka cricket got is their players, and if we don't look after them, our cricket's going backwards. And I'm hoping Mickey Arthur taking over, and with some coaches, we can get up somewhere, because we got some fantastic players. But all those can be thrown out, and I think after Mahela, Sangha, and then we haven't produced players, and that's where I think the issue started. Is there's nobody from school, and then did we groom anyone? I wasn't in Sri Lanka, so I can't answer that. I've heard a lot of things, whether we groom players to replace them. And that way I got to give credit to Arjuna, Aravinda and them, and even Sanat. After that, they started grooming players. When Arjuna will bat some youngsters above him, and get, so that you have, just imagine a youngster batting between Aravinda and Arjuna. The strength the players got. I got Aravinda up
Yeah.
here and I got Arjuna down here. And
Confidence. Yeah.
so I don't think we did that very well. And now that's why we have a similar level of experience, talent, the whole team pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
normally you have 5, 6 seniors, and then you go through that. And now you can't say seniors because they chop and change. And the changes we did most probably last 3 years is ridiculous. Sorry to say,
Yeah.
but it is. We've changed so many players. Like I think we had 40 or 50 odd players being given national caps. Uh,
A couple of
uh,
things you talked a couple of things you talked about. One was obviously that there are not many players coming through the system of the quality. Obviously, since even recent times when Sangakkara Jayawardene and Muralidharan retired, the quality doesn't seem as it was a few years before that. What you've already touched on a couple of reasons. One is grooming of players. Do you feel it also is a lack of leadership, not just from the team itself, but from the board and people that are in charge of cricket in Sri Lanka?
Absolutely, it is leadership as well, because when we change so many leaders as well, it's difficult for I think a lot of people to do it. There's so many things that's happening with leadership, and I think one thing that I can say is the mental toughness of players that cannot be just put a switch and say, "Hey, you're mentally tough." You've got to groom them and give them that experience and get them to do it. So,
Yeah.
and currently we have that issue of leadership because if you look at it, our captains are new. Coaches, I think, also must take some kind of blame. They take so much control of situations, what's happening in the middle. So when you do that and a player gets used to it, they don't start thinking. They just look back at the dressing room every time, and coach will send a message and all of that. When we were playing, Arjun and us decided the World Cup final. Take as example, decisions are made inside the ground by the 5 senior players. Team did a plan. The management all sat down and did a plan. After that, it was captain running the show. And that's why you talk about great captains. You talk about Imran Khans. You talk about Arjunas. You talk about Ricky Pontings, Mark Taylors. And take India. I mean, great captain, someone like Saurav Ganguly. People are talking very. And recently, Dhoni. So they are great leaders. They do things in the middle, and so but players really need to take a back step and say, hey, you go and do your job. Yeah, so those are the things that I think Sri Lanka cricket seriously need to look at and say, okay, we're going to have one leader and we are going to drive this.
As an observer as well, Asanka, I think it's been well noted that politics plays a huge part in Sri Lankan cricket, and the picking of the team and selection and whatnot. And you said before that you hate politics, and it was probably one of the reasons that you also left Sri Lanka and came to Australia. Why do you feel this case is that politics has to interfere with team makeup and running of cricket in Sri Lanka?
It's money. When the richest sporting body in Sri Lanka is cricket, the amount of dollars they bring in and all of that. As soon as that happens, everyone wants a piece of that. When we were playing, I'll be honest, I didn't know who was the board secretary or assistant secretary or minister of sport. I didn't know because I didn't care who was the minister of sport. My contact was my coach, the chairman of selectors we knew, and most probably the board president. That is all I knew in the board. These days, players are also taking sides, and so it's a sad thing. It's money to me, and politics is the reason I didn't want to renew my contract because I didn't want. I'm not a yes man. I'll say as it is. I mean, anybody else wouldn't walk away from cricket at that age. I walked away because I was not going to be a yes man or a puppet. And I think my best friend Roshan Mahanam is very similar. I mean, he walked away from ICC match referee position. Nobody has done that, and he's very straight. I've never met someone like that ever in my life. Unbelievably straight, one of the best human beings in the world. So I was not going to take being uh,
Yeah.
bullied or to make decisions, and that's the issue. I mean, selection, all these things that's happening. I think for a while now is still happening.
Yeah.
I can't talk a lot in detail about that, but one day, if I can say, I mean, there are so many things that I can say where, I mean, yeah. So that's something will always put me back again, ever to go back again. I will never say never,
Yeah.
but going back one day, but I can't say politics will ever go out of Sri
Mm.
Lanka sports. Politics will always be there. So um, unless we get a really, really good minister of sports who can move away from it, which is only time will tell.
Maybe one day you can write a book and we'll all read it and see what happens in there. In terms of Melbourne, now you've lived there for some time now. What's the biggest difference you find living in Australia compared to living in Sri Lanka?
Well, you would know as well, living in Sydney, the love is the best thing is nobody knows what you do here.
Mm.
You live your own life with your family,
Yeah.
and people are only worried about, I wouldn't say only worried about themselves, but they don't talk about other people
Yeah.
here. If you look at it, working with like, or moving around with Australians or anyone, I mean, closer to my house, I have Indian people, but we live our own life. We will meet on the street and have a nice chat, and we know we have friends, but nobody interferes with anybody's life. And
Mm.
that's something my family love it here.
Mm.
And the other one is the weather. I, even though I've lived in Sri Lanka for so long, I hate the hot weather. I
We
love
all
these
do.
freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
I love the freezing temperatures. But it is, yeah, and it's a clean city.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, so this is home now. I mean, I've lived here for 24 years. My
Yeah.
children have grown up here, everything. And so this is home.
Excellent. And one final question before we go into the rapid fire. Cricket Australia, obviously, like I said, they recently introduced this action plan to guide decisions that are made in the game. You yourself are now part of the culturally diverse team, which is much needed here in Australia. Tell us about, what your individual goals are and what the team are looking forward to when it comes to the development in this space.
Uh, we are still waiting for them to give us some guidelines as well, because we were just announced, and there's a meeting. The first meeting is happening in the next couple of weeks or so. So we will get our guidelines and especially our parameters and everything of where we can work on. But as you said just before, it is a very important part of Australian cricket
Mm.
that I'm very happy that Cricket Australia has recognized there is an issue, and to address it, because I do a lot of in a community just like you, most probably in Sydney, you know what's happening in the community. In cricket, especially in cricket, I speak to a lot of Indians, a lot of Sri Lankans, and a lot of Pakistanis and Afghanistan guys,
Yeah.
and I know what's going on and all of that. So I think I'm in a really good position to add value to this group.
Mm.
And because I have played a lot of cricket in Australia as well after moving here, and I know a lot of Australians in clubs and all of that. And some clubs are fantastic, and I know some clubs are actually on the right path, but then there are other clubs can be improved. So it's very difficult to go into detail until we have proper
Yep.
guidelines and a
Yep.
scope and say this is where it is. But I'm happy to give you more details when we start going on, because Cricket Australia will definitely uh, want to implement. I think the process is we will work through for about 3 to 6 months, and then we will give our recommendations and all of that to the steering committee, which is headed by their CEO and some people, and they will then get them into the board. So I feel by sometime next year, things will be implemented. But
Yep.
one of the things people should realize is this is not a quick fix, as you know.
Mm.
It's something you got to work with, and a lot will be education.
Yep.
Uh, and one thing I'm seriously looking at is to talk about uh, participation and being part of certain things
Engagement. Yeah.
as a yeah,
Mm.
engagement culturally. So
Yep.
that's going to be something I'm looking forward to, and especially with people like Usman Khawaja in that group as well.
Mm.
It's going to be, I think, a fantastic time for us.
Yeah, great. It's great to see that Cricket Australia are aware that there is an issue and things need to improve, and hopefully the execution is also good. So that ends up our formal questions. I've got some rapid fire round questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Who was your most favorite cricketer growing up?
David Gower.
No doubt about that, huh? The elegant left-hander from England. The best
Yes.
cricketer you have played with and against?
With the best cricketer is Aravinda de Silva. Against the best cricketer is Wasim Akram.
And he's probably the toughest opponent you faced as well?
Absolutely. He was the quickest consistently.
Yeah, and skillful, very, very skillful. Question number 3 is a current Sri Lankan cricketer who you feel would have made a great addition to the group you had in the 90s.
Angelo Matthews.
Question number 5. Okay, this one's a tough one. Kumar Sangakkara or Mahela Jayawardene?
I'll go for Mahela.
And
I have my reason.
And in terms of batting or everything, complete package?
It's everything, complete cricketer. I will go for Mahela any day.
Yeah, great captain, Mahela Jayawardene as well. Okay, another tough one. Muralidharan or Shane Warne?
I'll go for Murali, but Warne is not far away.
Yeah.
And Murali was tough to play even in the nets. We struggled to play him in the nets.
Who is the best cricketer currently going?
Virat Kohli.
And in terms of bowler?
I think the Australian pacey, is it? Oh, no.
Cummins?
Yes.
Cummins.
I like him. He's most probably one of the top bowlers going right now.
Yeah, and if he stays fit, hopefully, fingers crossed, he's got a long way to go. Funniest sledge you have ever received?
Actually, it was Sunil Gavaskar. My first tour to India in '86, straight after my debut as well in '85. I was batting and Gavaskar just looked at me. All senior guys. I mean, they were my heroes when I was young.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he was at slip and he said, "Come on, young man. It's tea in another 20 minutes. I'm not going to come back to field. So just you know what to do." And the next ball, I hit the bowler for a 6. and then he came up to me and said, "Mate, don't take what I'm telling you seriously. I'm joking."
Funny, Sunil Gavaskar. Your most favorite innings till date?
The 100 at the MCG is the favorite innings I played. It's a lot of things. It's the conditions, the opposition, the situation, all of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Asanka. That sums us up. Wonderful to chat to you. Great memories, listening to you talk about Sri Lankan cricket. Like I said, I still remember the 1996 World Cup cricket final and the semi-finals. And all the best with Cricket Australia, the roles of culturally diverse, inclusions cricket, Aboriginal cricket. These are all things that are important in our society, and it's great to see that Cricket Australia are putting their foot down to start at least making some changes. Thank you so much. All the best. Enjoy your week, and hopefully Melbourne can get out of lockdown very, very soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks.